Let us begin with the prayer that Jesus taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. So be it. Thank you. Now I welcome our speaker of today.
Thank you. From Daniel to Daniel.
Yes, from Daniel to Daniel.
I got one over here.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Apparently, it's a Daniel day. We are very excited to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really happy to just be with you in this day, which I appreciate is a Sunday. It's a Sunday, right? It's a Sunday. And that you could be doing something else, not being here, especially when it's rainy and it's so comfortable to be under the covers. You know, perusing the big catalog of Netflix or Apple TV or Prime Video or whatever it is that you have, all of them. So thanks very much for coming here. And I hope that you are as excited as I am to have a chance to mingle and to meet some wonderful people and to have some great quality time reflecting about things that, clearly I'm biased, but are important to us as immortal beings, exercising our spiritual muscle, so to speak, to remind ourselves that we are more than what we see in the mirror. So thank you. Thank you for being here. I always say that Spiritism has given me two great gifts. One of them is a different way of looking at life that has helped me really think about everything differently and made me a better human being and a less anxious one too. The second one I never expected, which is to meet some wonderful people all around this wonderful globe. They're trying to do the same thing, and that's really wonderful and refreshing to go to different places and just see people who are just trying to be better. It's really sort of like a spiritual oasis of sort where, you know, you go through your lives and things are hard, you have all these worries and all these challenges, and then you find groups like this and let your soul breathe a little bit without worrying of being accepted or not, without worrying about anything else. So thank you. Thank you for being here today. I will try not to talk for too long, although that's very hard because I get excited. But my idea is, if you're down for it, let's have a conversation for about 40 minutes or so, and then maybe we can open it up and interact, because I really like that part. But sometimes I get so excited about it, I get carried away. But we'll try, right? And today our topic is the 3 C's for overcoming conflict. As you can see here, connection, communication, and compassion. And I think it's a very wonderful topic for times because conflict is everywhere. I think we're having a little bit of a tough time as a society, as a humanity in general, dealing with conflict. So we hope to explore that, and maybe we can find one way or two in which we can be better at dealing with and finding great outcomes for conflict in general. Does that make sense? Yeah. And I've also smelled a wonderful smell of coffee, right? And so if by any chance you're getting a little bit low on energy, don't feel shy, go to the restroom. You're not going to bother me. There's some wonderful things over there, but we're just really grateful that you're here, right? Now, I know that because you are all very busy and the world's very busy, sometimes there is something called too long, didn't read, TLDR. So let me give you the TLDR for today, right? Thank you, sir. If anything else today, I would like to have you walk out of here with 3 different ideas or 3 different takeaways. The first one of them is that conflict is natural. It's actually inevitable and necessary, because it just means that we want different things. We're not the same person, and it's normal, and that's how we solve things, and that's how we grow. So I want to demystify a little bit the word conflict, right? That's one takeaway that I hopefully at the end we walk out of here with. The second takeaway for today is connecting is essential to our spiritual growth. We need to connect to each other, connect to ourselves. Without connection, there is no growth, and there is not a lot of other things. Happiness, fulfillment, or whatever it is, right? So that's the thing. So connection is very essential. And the third piece that I think is very key is that communication is the key. to overcoming conflicts and connecting. If we do a good job at communicating, then it helps us deal with all the challenges that we have and connect with other people and ourselves, right? So conflict is natural, connecting is essential, communication is key. That's it, right? Now, how we do it and diving deeper is a little bit trickier. So we're gonna try to do that. So let's do that. Let's kind of look at the 3 C's and dive into things. So at the heart of things is conflict, right? And the first thing I want to say to grown-ups and teenagers alike is conflict is not drama. These are 2 different things, right? Conflict is a natural thing that happens because you want something, you're thinking about something in a specific way, and somebody else, because they are somebody else and not you, are thinking about it in a different way. After all, you would not want to live in a world full of yous. I know it sounds interesting at first, but you really would not put up with yourself for very long, right? And so conflict is not drama. Conflict is natural. Drama is what we make of conflict if we don't know how to handle it very well. We create stories in our minds. We do all kinds of things. So although I was trying to be very dramatic by putting a red background here, right? Conflict is natural. It's inevitable. It will happen. There's no way it will not happen. If there's one thing that's going to happen is you're going to be in conflict with somebody else, with something else, or even with yourself. Because you're going to hold different viewpoints, different positions on things. And that's okay. I think people don't tell us enough that. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to have a different perspective. It's okay to be in conflict. What is probably not so great is to dial into the drama, right? Because it just makes a big deal out of it. So how can we not go into the drama? How can we do the good part of conflict resolution? Well, for me, the biggest secret, and has gotten me to think differently about things, is to understand that conflict is the result of a need that was not met. You have a need for something, and you don't get it. Somebody else has a need for something, and they don't get it. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. But this helps us to start to think about conflict and the people involved in conflict in a different way. It's not adversarial. It's not because we hate each other. It's not because you're better than other people. People just have different needs. Once you understand what those needs are, it becomes a lot easier for you to navigate the intricacies of conflict. Does that make sense? Right? And if we don't solve that, if we don't address these needs, then it can disconnect us from other people. We start to drift apart because if we don't find a resolution, we typically try not to engage with people. We try to cut them off from our lives. We try to cancel them from our existence. I don't like you. Goodbye. Right? And I'm not quite sure that's a great way of going about things, especially when you consider that we have learned through Spiritism that we are immortal beings and that we reincarnate. Which means if we don't solve this now, we're going to have to solve it later. It's like credit card debt. If you don't deal with it now, there's going to be, a bigger balance for you to deal with later, right? So why not deal with it right now? So it can disconnect from us, and it's generally made worse because we don't know how to communicate very well. Truth be told, very few of us have actually been trained in how to communicate effectively with other people or how to solve conflicts. That's something that traditionally has not been taught in our schools, right? It's something that we can intuitively pick up from the people that we watch. And the more that our world gets broken by conflict, the less good role models we have in conflict, which means the harder it is for us to solve conflicts. And the harder it is to solve conflicts, the less role models we have, and then it becomes harder. So it's like a downward spiral thing. And so today, I'm not saying that we're going to come out of here with a degree in conflict resolution, but we want to take some steps towards hey, maybe there are a couple of things, and next time that I find myself in a situation that can be conflicting, I can pull some tools out of my new tool belt to think about things differently. right? Because truth be told, it's hard, right? But let's try to look at it and see how it goes. Okay. So conflict. Let's dive into connection here. For instance, let's take a little sidewalk here, bird walk, because my brain sometimes takes a long time around, takes a scenic view to get to where it needs to go. But I want to pull you back to one of my favorite questions from the Spirit's book, which is really powerful. And in this question, it says, what is the purpose of the incarnation of the spirits? Right? Kardec asked the good spirits, why do spirits incarnate, come here to this earth? And I read this as the meaning of life question. No big deal, right? Just basically why we're here. It's probably one of the most consequential questions in the Spirit's book. When people say, I don't know what the meaning of life is, maybe you can check out and meditate on this question. It's pretty powerful stuff, right? And it's one of the reasons why I remember the numbers, 132. People are like, how do you remember all those numbers? Like, I don't. I just remember one or two because I care about them, right? So what is the purpose? Like, why are we here? Why are we living? Why do we do this incarnation thing? The spirits have some great answers for us. And they say, because God imposes incarnation for the purpose of leading spirits to perfection. So let's translate that from 18th century speak to our day-to-day time. God gives us this opportunity so that we can take steps towards perfection. That is to say, to learn, to grow, to evolve. We are here to learn, to grow, to evolve. Right? I think that's intuitive to everybody. Obviously, you're going to do it in different ways than I will. Very okay, we're different. That's powerful. But what I think is really great, and sometimes it's a slap on my face, with a kind slap on my face, is the continuation of this answer. Because it forces me to think slightly different. And they say, that's part number one. Part number two, so to speak, of that question is, incarnation has a further objective, which is to place spirits in situations where they can do their share in the work of creation. Translation. Hold your horses is not just about you growing individually. That's also true. But the fact that you're here has another purpose. You also are placed in situations where you do your share of the creation. That is to say, you also have a responsibility to contribute to the world. And you cannot contribute to the world without being in the world, interacting with the world, connecting with the world, talking with people, having relationships, dealing with conflict. There is no other way. That's why we're here. At least 50% of growth is contributing to the world. Does that make sense? So, incarnation is about evolution and contribution. And that means interaction. That means relationships. So how do we do that? All right. So we know that we have to work on this. We recognize that there's conflict and that we want to solve this. We tap into our best spiritual selves and know that we have to kind of find a way of dealing with each other. So how do we do that? All right. So let's dive into this piece. I want to bring to you a framework that I found very powerful, created by a man called Marshall Rosenberg. He's not a Spiritist, but Spiritists are not just about Spiritist things, right? We leverage everything that we can. And I think he's a fantastic guy. He was a conflict mediator, facilitator, coach, went into all around the world solving challenges. Sometimes you know this as nonviolent communication, because he really inspired himself in some of the tenets and some ideas of Gandhi, right? But a lot of times now it's called compassionate communication. And so whether you've heard it as a nonviolent communication, NVC, or you've heard it as compassionate communication, it's the same thing, just a different name. And he gives us a very simple framework to help us have these conversations, to have these communications with other people, these interactions that will help us not be in conflict or solve conflict. It's deceivingly simple, but it's hard to do, right? So the first piece is making an observation. When we're having, instead of passing judgment, we make an observation. The second piece is about stating our feelings. How is it that you feel in that situation? The third piece is identifying your need. What is it that you need and why are you feeling that way? Because feelings are what tells you about your needs. And the fourth one is making a request. right? So in principle, all of us can remember this. Observation, state your feelings, identify what you need, and then you make a request. Simple enough. But let's look a little bit more into it, and then we can try to see if we can do some examples and see how that could be helpful to us. All right. In making an observation, it's important that we make an observation free of judgment, free of labels. So that's very hard, right? That's very, very hard because we make judgments all the time. We just don't notice, right? For instance, oh, Johnny is a procrastinator. That's a judgment value, right? Or you're always late. That also tells me that you have a judgment, that you already made up your mind about who I am, right? So if we can make a observation about what we hear, see, and note, take some of that judgment out, it becomes easier for us to deal with the facts and for the person who's listening to us to go into troubleshooting mode as opposed to defensive mode, because nobody likes to be attacked, right? If I start my conversation with you saying that I think you're a jerk, probably not going to go very well, right? How not to lead into a conversation. That's what I'm saying. Maybe that's one of the main points, right? So it's very important for us to see, instead of saying, Johnny's a procrastinator, you can talk to Johnny and say, I've noticed that you were late 10 minutes for today's meeting. I've also noticed that last week you're also late 20 minutes from the meeting. It's a fact. Now, you can say that pretty judgmentally, right? But if you make your best effort, it goes a long way. Because then argument's not about what you think the person is, it's about whether that happened or not. Was it 10 minutes? Was it 15 minutes? No, it was really 8 minutes. Okay, if it was not 10, but it's 8, you're still late 8 minutes. Right? And so it's about making that judgment. Take that off the first piece. And the second piece about stating your feelings, it's about really thinking about how you feel. And this is a really hard part because it forces you to know what are you feeling. And we don't always know what we're feeling. Sometimes our feeling portfolio, so to speak, it's like a Dr. Seuss book. I'm feeling mad, sad, right? Bad, right? This is as much as because we don't get in touch with our feelings. But as a matter of fact, there is a whole lot of feelings here that we're just not aware of because we're not really in touch to feelings, because partially we have always been told that feelings shouldn't really be talked about. And just stuff those feelings. Save them for later. It's not even very professional for you to talk about your feelings. So we don't know how to deal with that, right? But the point here is when needs are met or when needs are not met, you feel a specific way. So Johnny, I noticed that this week you were late for 8 minutes. And I felt like you were a jerk. That's not a good feeling, right? Because feeling like you're not a jerk is a disguised judgment, right? So, but Johnny, you were late 8 minutes this meeting, and I felt disrespected. I felt like you did not care for our meeting. That's very different than you're a procrastinator, you're a jerk, right? So feelings are there. We can talk about our wheel of feelings. There's different wheels of feelings that you can Google and kind of look at it, right? But feeling hungry is not a feeling, right? Feeling like you're a jerk is not a feeling. We need to get in touch with that kind of stuff to know what our feelings are. Surprisingly, there's a lot of feelings that we, beyond Dr. Seuss, right? So we can kind of go into that. Once we do that, we can then identify our need. And needs are universal. We all have them. That's a big secret. We don't talk about them, but we all have them. And they're very universal, right? It's just a matter of degrees, of how you feel about different things. Like for instance, I have a feeling to be safe. I have a feeling to be accepted as a feeling of acceptance. I have a feeling for justice. I have a feeling for appreciation, right? You need to be able to diagnose. This is when you go inside of yourself, find out why you were triggered by that behavior, right? So, Johnny, I noticed that you were 8 minutes late, and that made me feel disrespectful because I have a feeling to be seen, appreciated, and also for fairness for everybody. Right? That's a different approach. It's leading me to get in touch with what is it that I'm feeling, to think about what is it that I want or need, And, as you guessed it, the next one is what? Making a request. Because you can't just dump your feelings and your problems into other people. Who is responsible for your needs? You are. So you have to try to solve your needs. And so you need to make a request. So, Johnny, you're late for 8 minutes. I felt disrespected. I have a need for feeling appreciated, seen. I have a need for justice and fairness, and I think it was a little bit unfair. Judgment right there going on. Would you be willing to work with me on a way of being here on time? That's a request. Probably plays a lot better than, Johnny, you're always late. We can't have that anymore. When you say that, what are you saying? You think you're saying, please be on time, but what you're really saying is, I don't want to deal with you anymore. Don't show up ever again. Right? When we make a request, we have to understand that a request is not a demand. A request is a request. So Johnny can say, no. And then guess what? You have to be okay with that. Because it's not just about you. It is also about you, but it's also okay to say no. No is a valid answer. That's hard to hear, right? No is a valid answer.
It is?
It is a valid answer.
Are you a mom?
I'm a dad. I am a dad, right? I'm a dad.
That's for your teenager arriving when he's supposed to arrive at 11.
That's a different conversation, right? How do you have that conversation?
You're not supposed to arrive at 3, right?
That's a judgment, right? Did you make that role before? Did he agree to that? All right. So you need to figure it out. So maybe a conversation is, hey, teenager, I've noticed that you arrived at 3 a.m. We had made an agreement that you arrive at 11 p.m. That made me feel sad, frustrated, and angry because I have a need to make sure that you're safe. I have a need for you to understand that we do this out of concern for you and that you should respect the boundaries. And it is disrespectful to our family because we were kept awake waiting for you to come back and we're tired. We love you, but we need to figure it out a way for this not to happen anymore. Are you willing to do this? And he says, yes or no. If he says no, he said, okay, I made a request to no. And then you can go to your mom thing and figure out what the consequences are. Right? But I think starting with a request and coming in from a human perspective is a little better. Another example could be, can we go back there? Another example could be, Mary, you're always on your phone. Have we heard that one before? I'm just making this one up, just hypothetically speaking, right? Hypothetically speaking, right? You're driving to Sunrise, and then this sad hypothetical teenager, it's on their phone, right? And then you get there, and you're like, you're always on your phone, right? So let's reword this, right? Say, hey, Mary, I've noticed that in our 35-minute ride, you were on your phone for about 30 minutes of that. And that made me sad, frustrated, angry, whatever feeling you're having, because I really want to connect with you. I want to spend time with you. It's important to me. Is there a way in which we can come up with a plan to have some quality time together? And maybe you can shift that phone usage to another time. Right? Will it solve all of your problems? No, because it's a request, right? And there's hormones sometimes in teenagers at play, right? And this is how you de-escalate the hormone piece, because when you tap into the emotion, it escalates, right? So when you identify the need about the frustration about your kid being on the phone, it's not about your kid being on the phone. Let's be honest with you. Is that they are not paying attention to you. They're not connecting with you. Or they're not doing something that's important to you. But we are not aware of our needs. So we dress them up in a way that is not what it is. And then we keep having conversations here at this level that surely really be at this level. And because everybody has a need for connection for love, for acceptance, for justice, for kindness, people can relate. But when you lead with the judgment piece, that's a hard one. If you are able to express your feelings, you have a better chance of touching someone and letting them come into that, because it's really, at the end of the day, it's about you thinking about how you feel and what you need, and thinking about what the person feels and what the person needs. You can recognize that in that moment, that teenager also wants connection. That's why they're on their phone. They want connection with their friends, with their world, because they're trying to figure out who they are. So they're looking for validation, just like we do, elsewhere. They're looking for validation in the outside world. That's why they go out. That's why they come back late. That's why they're on their phones, because they're trying to figure out how this world works. And we all have this degree of insecurity in us. And we think that when people give us likes, when they have fun with us, when they're dancing, whatever it is, like, we feel good. And for that moment, we feel connected. We feel appreciated. We feel seen. Right? So why is it that we're not having these conversations? We haven't really been trained for that. We haven't really found a space for that. But this works not only for your personal life, also works for your professional life. It can shift. It's about you trying to relate to people on a level that's not judgmental, that it gets you in touch with who you are and what you want, and what is it that they need to. And once you're able to do that, then it becomes substantially easier for you to do conversation. Are you going to have one conversation with your teenager and solve your teenage relationship, parent relationship forever? No. Are you going to have one conversation with your troubled employee and have that conversation be the divider of waters that solves all problems moving forward? Probably not. Right? Relationships are constant work. But if you work on that framework, it will help you. Right? It can start to have you take some of the judgment in your communication that sometimes we don't even notice, because we don't know how to address our needs. And we just dump it out into the world. And then, is it really a surprise that if we're dumping all this judgment and labeling into the world's not going to do that back to us? Right? So we have to put the love out into the world. And by love, I don't mean like the hippie love, the granola love, right? Oh, that's nice. I love that love too. But what I'm saying is, there has to be some caring and some thoughtfulness. And some people are going to struggle with that more than others. Teenagers might struggle with that a little bit more than adults. Although I have some friends that are adults that have never grown up from their teenage phase. I might be one of those, who knows, right? But while our bodies are growing, our hormones are kicking in, our brain is forming, we know, for instance, that one of the last parts of our brain, the brain develops from the back to the front. So throughout human evolution, right, we developed as lizards. We have our lizard brain part here, that, like, breathing and all that kind of stuff, and it keeps going forward, and then it goes all the way to the front. The front part is the one that we have, and the most animals don't have as developed as we do, called frontal lobe. Guess what the frontal lobe is responsible for? Cause and consequence. Right? So the ability to understand and plan ahead for the future and see the implications of things is very human. Right? It's not instinctive, it's like rational. And kids and grown-ups and husbands struggle with that. Right? You may say to your husband, can you please come back from the bar at 8? And he goes, yes. And then he arrives at 8 a.m. It was 8. Right? So it's a matter of us understanding what's at play. But it's also a matter of us diving into what is it that we need. Do we know what we need? We don't often know what we need. We think we know what we need. I need a better job. I need a bigger house, a better car. I need a partner who loves me and accepts me. What you really need is companionship. Is validation, is appreciation. Is being seen, known, and valued. So once we get in touch with that, is a different way of thinking about things. It's really hard because we have had the habit of not thinking about this. So to build the habit of thinking about this is work. But if you work on observations, feelings, identifying your needs, and making a request, we're one step closer to connecting with people. And then we can find middle ground. And you'll be surprised sometimes how people are talking about the same thing. Another example, simple example. You may not have heard this before. You get home and your partner says, "You're always at the Spiritist Center. We said we're going to go out for lunch at 2 p.m. It's 4 p.m. and you're always late." What you need to hear is, "I want to spend time with you. And I'm beginning to get worried that you like spending time with other people more than me. And I have a need to be appreciated." And you're like, "Oh, I didn't think about that. You know, I'm sorry. My intention was not to have you feel lonely, forgotten, or abandoned because I care about you. As a matter of fact, I go to the Spiritist group because I'm trying to become a better person. And one of the things that I really value is our relationship. Let's come up with a plan. I will come home earlier so we can go have lunch together, time with us. Or make a request. Do you want to come to the Spiritist group with me? And then we go out lunch with other people? Or do you just want to spend?" See, they agree. They agree. They're down. The new generation is down with that. Vote of confidence for compassionate communication, right? And so, you see what I'm saying? You can find your way. And there isn't a right or wrong way to communicate. But is there ways in which you can make your messages and your needs more clearly seen and understood so that it helps the quality of your human relationships? It's hard, especially when you're like triggered by something else, right? But hopefully you can get there, right? And so connection, communication, and compassion are all very important things for us to solve conflict. Sometimes conflict, it is not what we think it is, right? When you think, again, of other people or conflict in general as the result of a need not met, it helps you get closer to finding a solution and understanding where that person's coming from. And then you can just take away a lot of the conflict, a lot of the challenge, a lot of the drama that exists on these things, right? So we can kind of go back to the whole idea of the Spirit's book, the question 132, and know that there is a self component to this life. We're here to learn. But in learning, there is playing our part in the creation, which is to interact with others. Because in interacting with others, we grow. People with different viewpoints are going to make you think about things in which you did not think before. And once you get that gift from people, even if you don't agree with that, your world is richer. Because now you're seeing a different perspective. It is the philosophical interpretation of it is in giving that you receive. When you give that compassion and that empathy and that perspective to others, you receive awareness and growth in different ways. Really powerful stuff. You know? Maybe the spirit people know something that we don't, right? And so there's all of that. And and we also have a component here. I don't need to kind of work through this, but my point is, sometimes we have difficult relationships with people from the beginning, right? And maybe families sometimes have that. Sometimes you have that sibling that you don't get along with, and for 40 years you've struggled. Well, maybe it's not the result of just conflict from this life. Maybe you've had a relationship before that you didn't see eye to eye and did not know how to handle that. And now, guess what? You can't run away from it. Put it in the same family. You got to figure this one out, right? That's a great spiritual tool to force us to resolve conflicts. We don't always use it, right? And it's possible that relationship might get repeated over time in many different lifetimes if we don't address it. So let's address it. Let's take care of that stuff right now, right? Go back to communication. That's why we say outside of charity, there's no salvation. Charity just means paying attention to others. So when we are able to come out of ourselves, then we quote, save ourselves, that is, we evolve. When we're able to enlarge our awareness of the world, or the so famous think outside our little tiny boxes, we see things differently, right? And that's why Spiritism is so fantastic, I think, because as a body of knowledge, as a science which deals with the spirit, with the nature, what it is, where it goes, what's going to come and what's going to do, and how it relates to the physical world, it's important for us to understand, even though we're spirits who have a spiritual life that is beautiful and all wonderful things, we have a role to play in this world and in the next where we have to interact with people. So having that perspective helps us maybe take a little bit of anxiety out of our relationships. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you didn't have to feel anxious every time you had a tough conversation? Would it be wonderful if you didn't find yourself triggered or angered when you're near a person that you're in conflict with? It could be that you get there. You could get to the place where things don't trigger you as much, where you're not as bothered because you know what you need and you're able to at least make a request. Whether they're going to attend to it, answer it, it's not always guaranteed. But at least you walk out better knowing what the person wants. And maybe you might want to even ask that person to clarify. So sometimes they are not trained in compassionate communication. They don't know this. But you hear them and you say, okay, I heard that you think I'm always at the Spiritist group. Are you really talking about the fact that you feel that I have abandoned you or that I prefer them over you? Right? Even if they don't know how to start that conversation, you can. Because at least you are beginning to think about what is it that they need, right? And that becomes a great way of improving relationships, right? So, really, at the end of the day, it is about us thinking that conflict is actually not a bad thing. It's a good thing because it forces forward, right? We don't need to fight because I'm going to use the most philosophical example ever created because I'm that kind of high-level thinker. We don't have to disagree about what flavor of ice cream we need, right? If you like strawberry and I like chocolate, we don't need to argue about whose flavor is better. We could, but we don't need to. We could go back to the basics and understand that these two things are ice cream and that you can sit with your strawberry and I can sit with my chocolate and we can have a great time together celebrating the beauty that is ice cream. One of the proofs of the existence of God. Along with, I'm counting, air conditioning and indoor plumbing. Two things I find highly disregarded, by the way, in the modern world. Without ice cream, AC, and indoor plumbing, the world would not be as bright as it is today. I'm just going to put it out there. Right? Hashtag think about these three things. But you know what I'm saying? Right? So focus on what is the need and the essence of things, and it becomes a little bit easier. And connecting is essential. That means that you have to make an effort to try to understand what the person wants, needs, or is trying to say, even when they're not saying it. Parents, I'm looking at you. Teenagers and husbands and partners are going to have trouble sometimes expressing themselves because we do too. And so we have to try to get to the core of what they're trying to say, not about the words they're using. But you use the word, I'm like, what does that mean to you? Like, I meant this, right? Try to get the clarity, because words are sometimes imprecise. But if you can get to the core of it and ask for clarification, is that what you meant? Right? Did you really call me a knucklehead? Is that what you meant? Right? Why did you call me a knucklehead? What was behind that? Are you feeling frustrated? Are you feeling angry? Are you feeling abandoned? Are you feeling betrayed? What is it that you are feeling? Tell me. Let's figure it out. See something. Now, sometimes you can work things out. Sometimes you can't in that moment. But at least you get closer to it. Right? Oops. Communication is the key. Without that attempt, we can't connect. Without talking, without moving, the words are coming out of my mouth, right? At this point in time in our evolution, we cannot solve conflict. We have to use our words. We can emote, we can draw, we can send hearts, all great add-ons to language, but language is still a thing, right? We still need to use it. And preferably like with words that are discernible other than just like thing. Like this thing is a thing that it's a thing. Very thingy, right? We got to try to expand the vocabulary to be precise about what is it that we're feeling, to be able to communicate. So to solve conflict, we have to connect. And to connect, we have to communicate. And so if we look at ourselves as spiritual beings, we know that we will have to connect forever. We'll find better ways of connecting in the future. Maybe we won't have language. Don't need to, right? But in the meantime, we have to find frameworks and things that make us get there nonviolent communication or compassionate communication could be one of them. And we can go and look back at biblical references in the Gospel of Matthew where Jesus fights, for instance, right? If you have fought with somebody and you're still in bad terms, don't go to church, don't go pray, go out there and figure it out. Then come back, right? This is the Jesus in Jeans version of the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5 there, which says, if you're offering your gift at the altar and there, remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to them, then come to offer your gift. Figure your stuff out with people before you come pray and say, God, help me, right? Take it on your own things. And we can do that. And that's what the world needs, right? So I just want to also bring this sentence out, which I think is a really powerful one, pretty obvious in many different ways, from the book Action and the Action. Instructor Druzel says, we owe our fates to no one but ourselves. We get to decide how our life plays out. We have to play a role in it. Do we get to do everything we want to? No, nobody does. But we play the main role in our lives. And how we go about it and what we do matters, not only to ourselves, but to others. So why not try to communicate effectively, understand what people are going through, what are we going through, and make the best possible request that we can. And hopefully with that, we can get to a place where we won't have to be as anxious, where we can de-escalate all of this anger and hatred and things that are happening out there in the world. Because when you turn the TV on, you got wars going on, we got people arguing about political stuff, we got people arguing about race stuff, economics, we got people arguing about everything. Very few people are actually listening to each other. So hopefully we can do that because we want to be the change we want to see in the world. Does that make sense? So I'm going to pause there and maybe open to comments, suggestions, questions, anything that you have. Hi.
I understand we have to include the aspect of feelings, but how would you recommend to approach, for example, someone that puts himself or herself always in a place of feeling?
Talk about what their needs are. Why are they placing themselves in the place of a victim? What is that victimhood gives you?
If they do recognize that, because sometimes the victim will never recognize or
yeah, but you talk about it. So what's your need? Right? Going back to what's the need of a victim? That's somebody that plays the victim role. They need to be accepted. They need to be recognized. They need to be cared for, tender. So if we can have a conversation about what their needs are and how to meet those needs, maybe we can slowly get them to move away from that place. Most of the time, we don't know why we behave a certain way because we're not in touch with our feelings, right? There could be a lot of trauma there. There could be a lot of need for attention, for appreciation, right? For justice. Being a victim is a powerful thing because we get to hold that over people. I'm a victim. Help me. You can't treat me. You got to treat me nice, right? And people are victims. That's true, but shouldn't define who they are. They're way more than that, right? What has happened to them should not define who they want to be. They can choose to. Hard conversations, right? We want to have that in a caring way and open up to and hear them. Because there might be something about that situation that they find themselves a victim of that we don't understand. And so we got to put ourselves in their shoes too. Wow, if it happened to me, how would I feel? Right? But it is true, right? But I hear again, every behavior as the result of a need that was met or not met. So sometimes we don't know how to get each other's attention, so we might just play the victim card or the angry card because I haven't been able to get through you. And so one of the best ways to get attention, people is being angry with them. Sometimes we don't even notice that, right? As you break up with a boyfriend or girlfriend and you continue to fight with them because you're not ready to. If you really broke up with them and you're really ready to go on, why are you fighting? Because you're not. You still want to engage. You just don't know how to relate. And so anger and attacks is a way of drawing the people back into your life, into your thing. You just haven't figured that out, how to do that yet. 20-year-old me really wish I knew that. Right? Does that make sense? But find your way. Like you just have conversations about what's behind that. Play the game of like the 5 whys. Like why is underneath this? Like for you to think about it too. And the beautiful thing is that it also lets us spend time thinking about how other people feel and how we feel about how other people feel. Right?
So
Hold on, one back all the way back there, if you don't mind. She raised her hand first. All right, you can go first.
Well, first, I really want to thank you for the presentation. I think that the content and the ideas have been absolutely fantastic and very necessary in today's world.
Glad to be helpful.
I do want to hear you comment briefly on, I think, what is an underpinning thread throughout this compassionate communication, which is the need for vulnerability and to recognize the need for vulnerability and the two modes of vulnerability. So you have the internal one and the external one.
Mm-hmm.
Could you comment a little bit briefly, or at least just for us as an audience and a crowd, to hear you say that out loud, the need for vulnerability?
I'm hearing that you have a need for me to come.
Yes.
So I love that, and I think that he has wonderful people that have focused on that, like Renee, right?
Yeah.
And so forth, vulnerability. And I get that as well. And I think that vulnerability is a great word because it shares with others that we sometimes are just afraid of opening ourselves up, right? I would argue that vulnerability is not vulnerability. It's actually strength.
Yes.
Because it's about you finding out who you are and what you want. But we're all afraid of being judged. It's what it is. It's the biggest secret we have in this time of our lives, in this level of the world, where we all walk around thinking everybody else has figured things out, and we don't. And we're afraid that if I tell people that I don't know how to do this, I'm worried about this, people are going to think that I am less than. Because I'm feeling less than. Truth is, everybody's feeling less than. We just don't talk about it, right? There is that transpersonal psychologist, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, that has passed away. And she has a sentence that I really love. I might have said this here before. I giggled when I first read it. I'm like, that's it. She says, I'm not okay. You're not okay. We're okay. Right? We're not okay. Nobody has it all figured out. Nobody. If you had everything figured out, you wouldn't be here. And by here, I don't mean sunrise. I mean this planet. Right? The reason why you incarnated, why you took this physical vessel back to the 132 is because we got things to learn. And you can be a hand in other people's evolution too. So let's just kind of drop that a little bit, veil. Let's be sincere and say, I'm not okay. And then we got to be okay with the fact that people are also not okay. Your neighbor is not perfect. Your mom's not perfect. Your child's not perfect. Your husband's certainly not perfect. Right? Although he's trying, making a play out there for husbands everywhere. But you know what I'm saying? Like, we have to understand that we are construction sites. We are still happening. It doesn't Spiritism bring that to us in a way? If we know, question 132, and that we have many lifetimes, we have been building ourselves little by little to a better version of ourselves. Tomorrow we're going to be built better than today. The day after, we're going to be better than that. Why is it that we want to give ourselves that and want people to give us that benefit, but we're not often willing to extend that courtesy to others? We judge them as if they were ready-made things, but we want some leeway because I'm still growing. You're not, you're evil, you're a jerk, but I'm still growing. Right? In a way, we act like that sometimes, psychologically speaking. And so it's okay for us to get in turns. But let's not beat ourselves over the head either, right? Because sometimes we realize that and we go, oh my God, I suck. Right? Guess what? Everybody sucks a little bit. That's okay. Right? So don't waste a lot of time like threading to the mud of guilt and stuff. Sure, feel it. Like, that's okay. But then the question is, what's the request you're going to make of yourself? How are you going to move forward? What is it that you're going to do to overcome that? Because being stationary is a dangerous place to be, right? In the realm of feelings and things. So I don't know if that helps, but my perspective is vulnerability is great. I actually think it's strength. And I wish that we develop the habit of talking about our feelings and our needs from a younger age with the people that we care, especially in environments that are safe. That's why I like Spiritist groups so much. because it's a much safer environment in our study groups and the conversations to have these conversations, because we know these people, we know that they're trying to be better, otherwise they wouldn't be here. Nobody comes to the Spiritist group and says, I'm going to go over there today to mess things up. Right? Watch me. I'm going to go to that study group and I'm going to kick the chairs up today. Right? Intentionally, it does not happen. So this is a great training ground for us to try on the things that we need to try for the world out there, which is not as kind as it is in here. Now, you're still going to be annoyed by people in the Spiritist groups. There's still going to be that person that rubs you the wrong way. That's normal. But the training wheels are on, and that's really great.
Thank you.
Hi, Dan.
Hey,
I have another question for you. How do you deal with people that do not handle conflict?
do not handle what?
Do not handle with conflict.
Oh,
They
don't handle with
prevent
conflict?
to handle with conflict
Yeah,
because
they're avoiding conflict altogether.
exactly, because even in some cultures, okay,
Oh,
they
yeah.
are not allowed to
Conflict is
argue with
bad.
you.
Yes.
Exactly, right?
Uh-huh.
Then I'm coming from that side. If
Uh-huh.
a conflict is natural, and I agree with you, okay,
Mhm.
it's inevitable, I agree with you. But how do you deal with a person that, for more that you try, they will
Uh-huh.
not always will be preventing conflict and will not tell you how they feel or their needs?
Mhm. That's a great question, right? And we absolutely know that is a cultural thing, it's a generational thing. We have to remember, for instance, that we were not trained in feelings, generally speaking, and our parents, for instance, were trained even less, and their parents even less. So we're all becoming a little bit more aware of feelings, and our kids are way more in touch with our feelings. Sometimes our current generation says, those snowflakes. In my time, I used to walk barefoot 20 miles with water in my back to go to school, right? And I turned out okay. Did you? Did you really? Look at the world outside. Did you really? Right? This is what I want to say, but then I censor myself, right? Fortunately, sometimes I do have a filter, but it's okay. I mean, it's natural sometimes to avoid conflict because we don't know how to handle it. We've never been trained, and truth is, we are afraid of exposing ourselves. If we are to take this approach and look at people who are trying to avoid conflict, we'll say, what need do they have? They have a need for harmony, for connecting. They're just manifesting it in a different way. They feel like if they don't talk about it, it will go away. And then relationships are going to be okay. So their desire is also there for connection. It's also there for peace and appreciation. They just have chosen a different path in which they think they can achieve that. Much the same way they think they can achieve that, some of us might think that we cannot achieve it this way. So again, we have a conflict in ways in which we can get to a conflict. It's like very meta, right? Very metaphysical. We have a conflict about how to solve a conflict, right? But maybe if you use your conflict piece, resolution skills, instead of coming hot and heavy, you can say, hey, I notice that you don't want to talk about this. I hear you. I think that is because you're afraid that this might ruin our relationship or draw an edge. I just want to tell you that I really care about you and that I would like to talk about this because it's bothering me a little bit. Are you willing to talk about this and knowing that our relationship is going to be okay? And you have to be okay with the answer no again, right? And if they don't want to talk about it, then you let them be. We can't make people do that. Free will. We have to respect that, right? We can't force them. If they don't want to talk about it, we let them go. I see that all the time. I do that all the time in relationships. Some people are internal processors, right? You have a conflict with them. They say, I don't want to talk about this right now. I need a moment to process. If they have the vocabulary, they will say, I need a moment to process. Sometimes they don't. They just say, I don't need to talk. I want to talk about this. And then I go, but no, let's talk about this. Let's figure this out. Let's figure this out right now. My style is, let's figure this out right now. But somebody else's style might be, I need to process. They go and they think about this, and then they are okay to come back and process it. We have to respect that. They're making an unspoken request to you for some time to process that. And so if we are thinking about what is their need in the moment, we're able to see that. But most of the time, we're seeing red. We're not, right? And so breathe. Another wonderful, great technique is take a moment, do a little prayer, meditate. Do the breathing that mindfulness is so great for, right? Breathe in a moment, let it settle, and then you can say, all right, I'm ready to talk. And you can go straight into the feelings. Now, when we were talking, I felt really angry. I felt attacked. I felt like it was not safe for me to be there. And I have a need for safety, and I have a need for acceptance. Can you help me find a way that when we have conversations about this, I can feel safe? I can feel like you care, because I'm feeling like you don't care about me right now, right? Still a little bit of judgment in there, but at least it's better than where you would be. So it's about trying. Will it happen again overnight? No. But chances are, you can take a stab at it, and you can even say, hey, I am trying this thing. I'm trying to understand you, and I'm not very good at it just yet. But can you tell me a little bit about your feelings? Oh, what is this thing you're trying? You're trying this compassionate communication on me again? Like, yeah, I am, because I don't know. I'm trying. The reason why I'm trying this is because I am trying to connect and understand what you need, because I care about you. I don't know how to. So I'm trying. Can you help me? That's very different. If somebody says that sincerely to you, and you have a beating heart, chances are you're going to, okay, like I kind of hear you. So help me understand where you're coming from, right? But again, it's hard. We've never done that. It feels, every time we do something new like this, it feels what? Feels artificial, feels insincere, feels like a gimmick, right? Like, yee, right? Especially if you were taught not to deal with this. But if you can, then you'll be wonderful. That's one way of looking at it. And obviously, I talked all through my time, right? So I saw walks, steps over there, and I felt that he is probably struggling with his need to keep time, right? And I'm like, oh, sorry. Thank you. I just want to thank all of you guys for your time and your patience, and I really wish you the best. You guys are awesome. I love seeing how you guys are coming together, how the kids are here. Keep talking to each other. You're building something special here, something that defies the world out there. So congratulations. Keep going. Yeah.
Then, as a matter of fact, you're going to stay the whole morning. It's just because we have to we have a certain planning. But I think there will be more questions. Was a great again. We love to have you here. It's a great opportunity. So then, as I said, he study Spiritism, not only reading books but examining the concepts and the teachings. Professionally, he's a executive coach and a strategic consultant, and he's a doctor in education. That's how you can see put all things together. But the most important thing is the way he brings with this different light with the Spiritism glasses, right? So thank you again.
Thank you.
And Demetrius, I think we are ready. So the passistas, please take your. Oh, okay. And so for the ones who are used with passes, if you don't want to receive the pass, just cross your arms. Passes are a hand in position, is flow of energy, but if you don't want to receive it, just cross your arms.